But I want to talk about this, and I know Cliff is going to want to talk about it because, of course, you know that he works on gun control. And just to start off, the facts: a gunman wearing a gas mask, wearing a Kevlar vest. I don't know if he was wearing any other type of body armor. Basically, went into a theater through a side door, set off some type of tear gas or something like that, dropped it in there, and started to fire into a crowded movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver, at a midnight opening of the new Batman movie. Like I said, killed at least 12 people, wounded at least 50 others, some of whom were children. He's been identified as a guy named James Holmes, 24 years old, I guess. The shooter used 4 guns, at least. Some type of assault rifle, a shotgun, and 2 handguns. Apparently, he also booby-trapped his apartment. He was caught and arrested in a parking lot behind the theater. He was taken without resistance. He apparently told the cops that he had booby-trapped his apartment. They're, I think, on the scene now, trying to get in there without setting off the booby traps. His apartment building has been cleared. And apparently he was a PhD candidate in neuroscience at the University of Colorado, was in the process of withdrawing. You know, no one knows why he did this. I don't know if anybody ever really knows why someone does something like this. Obviously, you've got to be pretty mentally disturbed. And I want to talk a little bit about, I don't generally cover stuff like this in the main or beyond a brief mention. And a couple of people have written pieces talking about, let's avoid politics in this discussion of the Colorado shooting. And of course, I agree with that sentiment to a point. I don't think people should be talking about, does this help or hurt electoral races? I think it's stupid to talk about somehow Batman movies cause problems. There was a report that this guy apparently was affiliated with the Tea Party, which, of course, was, someone Googled. I mean, it's not like the guy James Holmes is that particularly a distinct name. And it was reported and mistakenly reported. And all of that aspect of it, supposedly politics, I guess, with a capital P, is secondary. And James Jamal Bowie, I don't know where he wrote this. I think he writes for the American Prospect, but he writes a couple other places. I don't know where I picked this up, but he says, it's important to recognize the extent to which stricter gun laws aren't a solution that will do away with mass shootings. That may be the case. He also mentions later in the piece that, well, yes, of course, some probably would be prevented. If only because in the attempt to get guns, if it was harder to get guns, someone would be caught or flagged or whatnot. You're not going to get rid of mass shootings simply by changing gun laws. And he writes that Anil Dash, who writes that we marginalize and neglect our sons when they feel vulnerable, stigmatize depression and schizophrenia, treat violence as entertainment. Yes, this is a cultural problem. But it's also a political one. I mean, as an example, listen to Congressman Louis Gohmert from Texas, who apparently was on heritage.org radio at the time that this story broke. And they asked him about it. And here is his response in terms of why things like this happen.
You know, we're going to talk about other things, but since you are a former judge and you dealt with criminal cases on the bench, and I don't know that you ever had something that was such a crime that is senseless as we seem to be seeing in this theater shooting, with at least a dozen people killed, evidently, in Aurora, Colorado. What is your experience with the way that we have too many twisted minds in our society?
Well, some of us happen to believe that when our founders talked about guarding our virtue and freedom, that was imported, you know, whether it's John Adams saying our Constitution was made only for moral and religious people, it's wholly inadequate to government of any others. Ben Franklin, only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. I mean, it goes on and on. You know, George Washington, all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion, and morality are indispensable supports. We have been at war with the very pillars, the very foundation of this country. And when, you know, what really gets me as a Christian is to see the ongoing attacks on Judeo-Christian beliefs, and then some senseless, crazy act of terror like this takes place.
So wait a second. So now Louis Gohmert here offers his notion of why these things happen, because we have been at war with the pillars of our country. Because we have been attacking Judeo-Christian values. Now, I actually think this genre of critique is not, I guess, incongruous with the situation. I just happen to think that his perspective on it is completely insane. Not only do I think that we have not been at war with the pillars of our democracy or this country, nor do I think that we have been engaging in an attack on Judeo-Christian values. I think that's just insane. But I think one could make an argument that we have created an environment in this country surrounding violence and guns that promotes these type of attacks. And to say that politics are not involved in that is to completely ignore what constitutes the vast majority of our news, what constitutes the vast majority. We don't have social philosophers that are on our TV on a daily basis, or on our radios on a daily basis, or writing our books that are getting to the bestseller lists. We have politicians, we have political fighters, if you want, whatever you want to call them. And so that affects our culture and our society as much as anything. And when you have people like Louis Gohmert, or, I don't know, name 50 other politicians who are going around saying that, you know, the idea that Ted Nugent is getting these talking points about people coming for your guns, about the race war that's coming, or that we've got to protect our Second Amendment rights with a, you know, or we'll take them out at the with bullets instead of ballots. This is the crap that's floating around in the ether. So Louis Gohmert has his idea of what's creating this. It's the attack on the war on the pillars of our democracy, and an attacks on Judeo-Christian values. And I have my notion of what creates this environment. And I would think, and I'm willing to any objective standard as to tell me which is permeating our discourse more. What national leaders are going up there and waging a war on the pillars of our democracy? Other than and the people who are buying our democracy, they're not advertising it. So today, this morning, when the NRA tweets out, "Hey, good morning, shooters. Happy Friday, weekend plans." When the NRA is putting out push polling, I want you to listen to something that a listener sent us from the NRA that they're sending to people's homes. Now, I want you to understand something. I am not blaming the NRA for this shooting. I am blaming the NRA for being a massive contributor to a context which breeds this stuff. So, you need to have a context where this stuff grows. There's a reason why we get more of this than, say, Canada. And more of it per capita than, say, Canada. So when there are hundreds of millions of dollars going out to send this message to people that they're coming for your guns and this and that, it permeates society. Play it.
Action, supervision, tracking, tracing, surveillance, marking, documentation, verification, paper trails, data banks, new global agencies, and data centers. Nowhere do we find any thought about respecting anyone's right of self-defense, privacy, property, due process, or observing personal freedom of any kind. There is only one solution: the complete removal of civilian firearms from the scope of any treaty. I will repeat that point, as it is critical and not subject to negotiation. Civilian firearms must not be a part of any treaty. On this, there can be no compromise. Therefore, the NRA will fight with all of its strength to defeat any treaty that includes civilian firearms within its scope. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The question we're asking is, do you think it's okay for the UN to be on American soil attacking our gun rights? Let me repeat that. Do you think it's okay for the UN to be on American soil attacking our gun rights? If you do not think it's okay for the UN to be attacking our gun rights, please press 1 now. If you do think it's okay for the UN to be attacking our gun rights, please press 2 now. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our call and for taking our survey.
Okay.
Please call 1-866.
Now, what this latest NRA push poll is about the UN arms trade treaty talks, which has nothing to do with in any way inhibiting people's right to carry guns in this country. But the NRA generates money off of this stuff. It creates a sense of paranoia. It creates a sense that there are people coming who are going to put you in some type of FEMA camps. So you better be armed. And the idea that this doesn't permeate society, it doesn't create some type of like cesspool in which it plays on those who have mental problems in our society. Look, they got mental problems with people in Canada too. It's the context. It's the context that is created. And so to say that there is nothing in our politics that creates this is absolutely wrong. People use this stuff as a way of raising money for political purpose. They use it for electoral advantage. They use it to enrich themselves via our political process. To say that that these events have nothing to do with politics is to say that there's no politics in our society, that politics don't permeate what we do. It's ludicrous.